Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. We're going to step back about 10 years to the period when DC was doing Before Watchmen, a very controversial group of stories that were prequels to the original Watchmen series without the involvement of Dave Gibbons or Alan Moore. Now, one of the series was a favorite of mine, and that was the Silk Spectre miniseries created by Darwin Cook and Amanda Conner. Now, I didn't get a chance to talk to Darwin about this, but I did have a great conversation with Amanda. One of my favorite people in comics, she and Jimmy Palmiotti, the it couple, really sharing the title with Louise and Walter Simonson. Really enjoy all their company, and looking forward to seeing them in a couple months. But for now, let's revisit this great conversation with Amanda Conner on today's Word Balloon. Word Balloon is brought to you by my listeners, the League of Word Balloon listeners, via Patreon. Patreon.com/Word Balloon. You know, Word Balloon is like an audio magazine when you come right down to it in terms of the types of interviews that I do. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it enriches your love of comic books and pop culture in general with the various subjects I hit and the guests that I have. Is Word Balloon worth $1 a month to you? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month to you? If you think it is, I would love your support. Patreon.com/Word Balloon. Word Balloon is free. It'll always be free. But there are costs, and, hey, you're helping me out. So if you would, I would really appreciate the support. Patreon.com/Word Balloon. Thank you, as always, the League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is brought to you by AlexRossArt.com. Alex has been a longtime sponsor of Word Balloon. I greatly appreciate it. You got to go to his website. You will find tremendous art from original work, covers, pages, fantastic lithographs, amazing posters. Every price point is covered, and every subject is covered at AlexRossArt.com. You've enjoyed his iconic looks at DC and Marvel, but also great stuff like his wonderful work on the Monkees, Monty Python, so many other great pop culture things that Alex has put his fingerprints on. His wonderful Flash Gordon poster that evokes the fantastic Dino De Laurentiis Sam Jones movie. Recently, Alex did things like the timeless Marvel covers featuring great solo shots of all your favorite Marvel heroes. And, of course, his Fantastic Four full circle graphic novel still available. All waiting for you now at AlexRossArt.com. Amanda, welcome to Word Balloon. Long time coming. So glad that you were able to join me today.
Me too.
Congratulations on Silk Spectre. What a great start. I love it. Truly.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm glad you liked it. We're putting so much work into this book.
Well, it's great, and I appreciate the tie to the kind of symbolism we got in the original series. But before we get to the nitty-gritty, I am curious, what was it about this challenge of, doing this kind of prequel interested you in the project?
Oh, well, it was just them asking me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, yeah. I pretty much jumped. I'm one of those kids that grew up with Watchmen, and every time I read it, you always find something new in it. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, I didn't see that before, and it turns out that if you go online, I've discovered there are people who have actually picked apart every panel of the book and, formatted it, so that you can find stuff on their websites about it. And I was going through a lot of that, and I was like, oh, look at what they discovered that I didn't know about. And then I can go back and look at it. So it's one of those books that I grew up loving. So, just them asking me to do it, there was no question about it. I was like, yes, I want to do this. It's interesting.
Are you saying, too, that the sites are finding more symbolism and similarities than what you and Darwin initially, planned on doing? They're finding more?
I don't know about that. I wasn't planning on it. It was just sort of something that came while I was doing it. I was like, oh, I should be doing this. And right here is a great opportunity to do this. And I did sort of want to pick out sort of a theme, being that it's Lori at 16 years old and she's finally getting away from her mom. So I wanted to do these sort of, I went through the book and I'm like, well, what's a good metaphor? And her busting out of the castle sort of ties in with the castle busting out of the bubble,
Sure.
out of the snow globe when she drops it on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of what I decided to anchor it onto. That was my springboard. It's like, the princess escaping from the castle was what I was going with.
Okay, and yeah, I mean, you see it all over Sally's place in terms of the photographs on the wall and certainly that initial scene of the snow globe. But yeah, that, she's kind of stuck in the queen's domain. And really, it's so funny looking at all the as in the original. It's fun looking at what's in the background as much as in the foreground, because it also tells the story of her oppression, for a lack of a better word, living under her mom's rules and under this role that her mom is forcing on her.
Right.
That's terrific. And I love the music cues as well. And it was fun. I mean, I recognized Leslie Gore right away. And I kind of knew the Shirelle song at the end, but I had to do my homework. And also the Bessie Smith song that Sally is listening to. And literally, it was great because I think all those songs have that feeling of those old suitcase-looking record players that we grew up with. And,
yes.
You could almost hear it, that kind of tinny speaker kind of playing these
yes.
songs, as opposed to the high fidelity that maybe we get today.
Right. Yeah, I was going for that's one of the reasons that it's taking me so long to do this book is the heavy duty research. There's a lot of research going into this book, and I wanted to definitely pick songs that sort of either matched the moment or sort of were juxtaposed against the moment to just make it more absurd, like it was during the fight scene.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of research that's going into the music, that's going into, the background stuff. I even got to a point where they were running away. I was trying to imagine a place in LA where they would be sitting, waiting for a car to come pick them up, and the sun would be rising behind them. And so I'm Google mapping LA to see where that spot would be. So
that's awesome.
My poor editor, Mark, is about to jump out the window, because he's trying to meet a deadline. And I'm like, so where would they be sitting in this case? So yeah, and poor Jimmy, Jimmy, my fiance,
yes.
he's been like the past several months, it's like just having a roommate instead of a mate. I feel so bad for him, and he's just like, "Will you just let it go?" I'm getting all obsessive.
Well, it's coming through on the paper, so we appreciate it because it's great. Tell me about working with Paul Mounts, too, the colorist, because...
he's great.
Yeah, and I know you guys have a long, working relationship as well, and you guys are all friends, but really, I think his palette as well is serving the story well in terms of continuity with the original story, but also really being there for these dramatic moments.
Yeah, I have to keep Paul... Because am I allowed to swear?
Sure, of course you are.
Oh, he's probably the only colorist that would put up with my yards and yards of bullshit. I have so much nitpicking in me that it's not funny. In fact, right before you guys called, I was on the phone with him, and he's like, "Listen, just pick out the big stuff because this book has to ship today." so yeah, he puts up with me, and yeah, I drive him nuts. But man, he does such an amazing job. And what we had decided to do, and you haven't seen issue 2 yet, but what we had decided to do is keep the palette on the first issue very subdued, almost like an old photograph. Mm-hmm. And, once Lori enters the world of the hippies, that's when the colors sort of explode.
Cool.
So, we were talking about it, and I told, Paul, I was like, yeah, we should think of it as The Wizard of Oz. when when Dorothy gets to the Land of Oz, that's when the color explodes. So, that's sort of the way we're handling it.
Fantastic. And also, I love the dual and in some cases triple tracks that the original Watchmen series went through, and also what you're doing with the prequel, because obviously this is kind of filling in the gaps of some of the scenes that were hinted at in Watchmen, but also it is always this kind of look at comic books throughout the different generations in general. Darwin's doing it with Before Watchmen, or with Minutemen. We're seeing the Golden Age, and you've got this great, especially in this first issue, combination of teen comics along with the dark side of Laurie's life, and as it starts to seep out and everything. So, I mean, really, even the fight at the malt shop and everything was really the bad end of what could have been a Betty and Veronica kind of confrontation.
Exactly. That's what we were sort of going for. Also, I was saying that I want it to be sort of like a romance comic, but with severe beatings in it.
That's awesome.
So that is, the flavor I'm trying to give it is, like if you had picked up a romance comic and all of a sudden there's just all this horror. It's all the shit that they don't put in.
Sure. Yeah. One of the great things about the story, too, is your moments where you're able to show Laurie's inner monologue and her own frustrations while from high points to low points, her frustration with her mom. And we get that great image of her riding shotgun on Mom's souped up motorcycle, but also Greg kissing her boo-boo on her shoulder and Laurie feeling like jumping over the moon. That's pretty cool.
Right. It's a really fun way to get out Laurie's inner thoughts, rather than, having her express how much, she can't stand her mom right now, or like, oh, I love him so much. It's really a fun way to get to know Laurie's inner feelings. And
also, Sally, it's great to kind of, get clues to her past. And again, I mean, you're obviously going by what Alan and Dave did in the original series as well. Are we going to see? Is there more of a dual track here, or is this really Laurie's story with obviously Sally's influence and backstory that's already been established just kind of seeping through?
It is definitely Laurie's story, but Sally does play a big part in it. I think Darwin is doing more Sally stuff in the Minutemen, and but we do want to definitely, address the relationship that Laurie has with her mom here. So yeah, it is Laurie's story, but it's a huge, her relationship between her and Sally is a huge part of it.
Tell me about working with Darwin. I think you guys are working great together based on the first issue. But how is that working? Because you're both credited with the script. Is he dialoguing? I mean, did you guys go over the plot together? What We're sort of doing it guerrilla style. Cool.
So the first issue had a lot of dialogue on it. Not all the dialogue, but it did have a lot of dialogue, and sort of the scenes that Darwin wanted to make sure that we addressed. But in the second the second part of the story, issue 2, was mostly the points that Darwin wanted to hit, and see what I did with it. So what I discovered is that there are some things that I can't do. There is one character, and I didn't have his voice, and I said, Darwin, you have to handle his voice because I don't know how to talk like this. And then there were other characters where I said, oh, I got this guy down perfectly. And the both of us sort of messed around with Laurie. And and one of the reasons that Darwin wanted me on this book is because he needed the voice of a 16-year-old girl. But it turns out his voice for a 16-year-old girl is probably just about as good as my voice for a 16-year-old girl is. which kind of surprised us both, because I was like, there's part of me that forgets a lot of what I felt like when I was a 16-year-old girl.
Understood.
So Lori is something that, Darwin and I are both working on. But yeah, we definitely have our characters that we're sort of drifting towards, depending on what the situation is.
And what were your romance comics and the like that maybe you read and maybe using as some sort of template inspiration for some of these scenes that we're seeing?
Oddly, I know I read them when I was a kid, but I don't remember any particular romance comics. I was actually more into the superhero comics. However, I did love Betty and Veronica.
Okay.
So that's about as close to romance comics as I got, even though I know I read some when I was little. But it's funny, I was actually on the phone with my aunt, who was Lori's age, who's actually Lori's exact age. And so I was picking her brains about what she was doing when she was that age. And she was doing exactly that. She was reading a lot of romance comics.
Okay.
In the mid-'60s.
Oh, very cool.
So, that's where a lot of her allowance and her money was going towards, was romance comics. So, yeah. And then she told me some really funny stories that I wish I could put into this book that happened to her, but I don't know if there's room for it.
Understood.
We have a story to tell here, and I'm dying to put these vignettes in it, but I'm like, I have to hold back on it. And there's so much in this book that I want to do, but I have to just sort of rein myself in, because we have to get the story out.
Again, I think it's a great start, and we've got 3 more issues to go. Are there other superheroes? I mean, Lori's character is reasonably, obviously defined in the original book, and we're seeing, again, flashes of the woman she's going to be. And that's what's great about this story. We know the end destination, but this is the journey that leads to it. And, of course, that's where great stories come from, is seeing this kind of journey. Are there other superheroines in mind, or is this really do you think about other superheroines that you can connect to Lori or even Sally?
It's hard to say, because I don't want to give away too much.
Understood.
But there are other characters that aren't normal.
Sure.
There's the Watchman, and then there's the rest of us, and then there's, some of, the Watchmen's and the Minutemen's adversaries. And they're not normal either. So, we're trying to keep that in mind when we do it.
Okay.
So, but I don't want to give too much away. But yeah, there's a lot of people who just aren't normal. And then there's a lot of people who, that you would think of and you'll say, oh, I didn't know they did this. But they didn't do it in our world, but they did it in the Watchmen universe. So, or the Watchmen reality.
I understand. Now that the first issue is out, because there was so much tug of war between, I think, some readers who, went as far as saying, I'm never going to read this, to, people being open to the idea and stuff. What has been the reception that you've seen, either in person or, if you have noticed online, how's the reception been so far to this first issue?
From what I've seen, it seems to be really good. I've been working so hard on this thing. I'm obsessing over it so much that I haven't had a whole lot of time to read the reviews and stuff like that. But every once in a while, Jimmy and Paul will actually pull some that they found and email them to me. And, when I get a moment, I'll go and I'll read them. I'll open them up and I'll read them. And it seems, the few that I have read, they seem to really like it.
Excellent.
People seem to be, digging it.
That's awesome. Well, in a lot of ways, this is a great extension of what you started when you and Jimmy and Justin were doing Power Girl and the Pro and stuff. So it's honestly, I think it's a great follow through. And really, really enjoyed this first issue. And as always, we can see the twinkle in the character's eyes the way you draw them. And I think that's great.
Thank you.
Absolutely, no question. And
great.
Well, and every time I see you at conventions and stuff, you're always really sweet and great to your fans. And I know they all appreciate that. So congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is a great start. And like I said, I know we've got 3 more issues to go, and I know time is tight. So I know you need to get back to your drawing board. I'd love to talk to you at a future time about some of the other things that you, Jimmy, and Justin have cooking. I know there are projects on the way. And this is the book of the moment right now. Do you want to tease, or is it too early to tease some of the things you've got brewing post Watchman?
There's actually something that I was supposed to be doing right now, but we put it on the back burner for this project because this project was just too juicy to pass up.
Understood.
So we put it on the back burner. But after this is over, Jimmy and Frank Thierry and I are going to be doing Captain Brooklyn.
Awesome.
so I'm after that after this I'm looking forward to drawing that. And not too many people know about it because I think getting comics online is still a relatively new thing. So I don't know how many people know about this, but Jimmy and Justin and I our first couple of issues, even the third one now, is online. Possibly the fourth one, Wonder Woman, Amakami Wonder Woman.
Oh yes, of course. Oh, I'm glad you
I
brought that up.
don't know if you saw that.
No, I was so with tunnel visioned about the before Watchmen. I did see that, and I absolutely. I'm glad you want to mention that. By all means, yes. How's that going so far?
My part on that is done.
Okay.
But I think there's like a whole series of them that Jimmy and Justin had written, and it goes through all of the Amakami characters. So, and the first one that was up online was Wonder Woman, which is the one that I had worked on.
Mm-hmm. Did you?
And then
as you're working on these digital comics, are you finding that you have to kind of change your art for this digital format in a certain way?
Yes. There's actually they gave us paper that we had to sort of stay in certain borders for that, which is so it was something that I had to adjust to. It wasn't a big adjustment. It wasn't so bad. It's just something new. But other than that, it was pretty good. It wasn't too much of a monkey wrench.
Okay. Have you been reading what Mark Waid's been doing at Thrillbent with Peter Krause?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. You know what? That's what sucks about being an actual professional comic book artist is that you actually have less time to read comics.
I understand.
And I was thinking back, I was like, man, right before I got into the comic book industry, I would have a stack of comics, and like on a Saturday afternoon during the summer, I'd put a blanket out, and I'd get something to drink and like maybe a bowl full of fruit or something like that, and spend hours outside on a blanket reading comics and munching on peaches.
I like peaches. That's good.
And I kind of miss doing that, and I read so many comics, and I love Mark and I love his writing, and I got to say I didn't even know about it, so I'm ashamed of myself.
Oh, no, I was just...
So what is he doing?
Well, he's making digital comics, and obviously the pacing panel to panel is something that I think he's focusing on. And I was wondering, too, for Americomics or anything, if beyond having to work on that certain paper, if, the storytelling has changed in terms of, the reader wiping from panel to panel versus us looking at a full page in a book, and if that's even... affecting your judgment in terms of how you lay out panels?
It's still too early to tell. It seemed to have worked itself out pretty well. The way it did, in the first couple of issues, it seems to read pretty well. I think you just adjust. I think storytelling, not in all cases, and definitely not in the Watchmen case, but I think storytelling is more about what you put in the panel and the pacing of the panels than it is about how they're laid out or what size they are.
Okay.
So yeah, it's I think it's more about that. But yeah, I mean, there are some things that I think a splash. I don't know how a splash. You'd have to work out a splash differently than the way I worked it out.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a learning process. Looking back at it, I was like, oh, I probably would have done that differently.
Okay.
So yeah, there are a few adjustments that you have to make that I think if I ever have to go around with it again, I would do differently.
Fair enough. Are we going to see you at San Diego? Will you be set up there? What are your summer con plans, if any?
I am going to be at San Diego. I'm going to be at the NFR booth, which is sort of on the south side, towards the south side of the hall. I think it's in either hall F or G. I think G.
Okay.
I think it's like on the cusp of F and G. And usually I spend all day at that table, but I am trying to make sure I get my Watchman work done.
Understood.
So I might not be there as much as I'd like to be. I might be back in my hotel room working on pages.
Understood.
And the other thing is I will be doing some signings at DC's booth.
Awesome.
Here and there. I don't have the schedule on me right now. I know what times they are, just not right in this minute.
Oh, of course.
So there's that. Check with DC's schedule. So there's that. And, if you can't catch me at the DC booth, try me at the NFR table. And if I'm not at either of those places, I might be at the IDW table because I also have a sketchbook.
Yes, you do.
Out.
Art of Amanda Connor. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Absolutely. No, there's great stuff in there, and I'm thrilled that that you're getting that kind of showcase. Well deserved. And
thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Fun to see how, things have suddenly evolved over the years and stuff. So
I know. It's taken I probably shouldn't even say how long it's taken because it's showing my age. It's taken a lot of years, but it's been worth the wait. And my summer schedule is working on Watchmen and going to San Diego. And if you don't find me mostly at either the DC booth or the NFR booth, it's probably because I'm up in my room trying to work out pages.
I understand.
On Watchmen.
Well, and no other cons other than San Diego this summer, or just obviously too busy
Not
with
this
Watchmen?
summer. No, we were supposed to do a lot of conventions, but we sort of had to cancel them. And I hate doing that, because I know that the convention organizers work so hard on this. But I think my number one priority has to be making sure that Watchmen ships on time.
I understand.
And not only ships on time, but comes out really well and, hits all the points that we want to hit and rings really true as far as, the decade goes and everything, the era. It's just so research heavy for me. And it's taking a lot longer than a normal comic would, just because I just want to make sure everything is right. So, and then once you make sure everything is right, you have to make sure that you tweak it a little bit because it is an alternate reality where electric cars already exist in 1960.
Sure.
In the 1960s. So there's like little tweaks here and there. Somebody actually had a really good phrase for it. One of the other interviews that I had done. No, I can't remember what it was, but it's like retrofitting, like making sure everything is, rings true for a certain era, and then retrofitting it for the Watchmen reality.
Certainly. No, absolutely. Well, and that's part of the fun is seeing how Dr. Manhattan's influence on a dual time track changed familiar territory like the '60s and made it different. No, a feast for the eyes, absolutely, and it's And I don't
want to make it too different because Dr. Manhattan, John has only been Dr. Manhattan for like 5 or 6 years so far, so it hasn't changed too much. It's changed a little, but not too much. But by the time you get to 1985, everything's changed a lot.
Right.
So I wanted to make it a little bit change, but I didn't want to make extreme changes.
Understood.
Because he's only been on the map, for a few years now.
Is it fair to assume that then this entire story will pretty much take place before that first meeting of the Crime Busters?
I think without giving too much away, I could say yes.
Okay, that's cool. And again, I think, like I said, I think there's a journey there that I think you've obviously established in issue 1, and it'll be fun to see how the 3 issues go, and this continuity implant in between the pages of the original story. I think it's great. And honestly, I really appreciate what you, Jimmy and Justin, are doing, and obviously Frank too, with Caperton, Brooklyn, and beyond. All the stuff that you guys have going on, your own original ideas, I think is great.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I really want to talk more with yourself and Jimmy about it at a future time. So
okay, yeah, that would be a fun podcast to do, is Jimmy and I together, because we just start, like, sometimes we're tired and we're punchy, and then we just start getting goofy.
Well, that's, I will follow up on that and bug Jimmy, and we'll try and arrange that in the weeks and months ahead. That'd be terrific. And
okay.
And yeah, honestly, you're always a delight when I see you face to face. You're very cool, and on the phone as well. So really, thank you for your time. Congratulations on the start of Spectre. We look forward to the rest.
Thank you. Thank you very much.